Hi, my name's Ray, and this is my ghost story. I think for my whole entire life, it was never a question of whether or not ghosts were real. It was more a question of what people's experiences with them were. So I always feel as though I've gravitated to people in my life who have explored the paranormal and had different encounters that they wanted to discuss and talk about with somebody who actually believed them. So I remember a few instances in my life, and more as I've become an adult and have more memories of this. In my childhood, I always had very strong feelings when things would feel unsafe or uncertain. Like I always felt as though I had that kind of a sixth sense. I remember I must have been, I'm gonna say 7 years old, maybe younger. I had the most vivid vision, for lack of a better word, of being in my bedroom and waking up and looking into the hallway and seeing a bear walking down the hallway on its hind legs. And where that's not really a ghost story, it was definitely my first realization that something happened. And I know it wasn't a dream because I remember it. I remember this occurrence happening. And I also remember telling my parents or asking my dad, like I saw a bear walking down the hallway, and he's like, no, you didn't. Like, bears don't walk down hallways. They don't come in houses. Like, that's crazy. And I was just like, no, I know I saw it. And from that point, I always questioned when things would happen. So in my house growing up, it wasn't a particularly creepy house by any means. It was a fairly new build. Like I want to say it was built in the 80s or something like that. And it was built in the forest, but not super far from town. So there was nothing that was like particularly weird or strange about it. There was not really any areas that were like creepy or went unused or, weren't furnished. Like the whole house was really lived in. And I remember having a few key experiences. One time, I was a little bit older, like maybe I was 10 or 12, and I was showering, and I remember seeing a shadow just move across the ceiling from just outside of the shower curtain. And it was a strange thing, and I remember looking to see if there was anyone in the bathroom, and there wasn't. Like, there was nothing that could have explained a shadow moving like that at all. And I remember thinking, like, that was a weird experience. It's one of the experiences that I remember the most. And I remember being very scared of the bathroom. I watched The Sixth Sense, and I was petrified to go into the bathroom because of the guy standing in the bathroom scene just always freaked me out. And then this spirit shadow thing happened, and it really just kind of messed with my head. And around the same time, I was in my room, and I had left to go out to do an activity. I was going to gymnastics or something like that. And I came home, and I look on my ceiling. So my bedroom had a slanted ceiling, so it was probably about 4 feet high at the lowest, and 7 feet high at the highest spot. And I look on my ceiling, there was this perfect like half circle pattern of like splattered like brown spots. I think it, like, I figured out it was chocolate or something. It was just like someone had come in and done this. It was the weirdest thing because there was no explaining it. None of my siblings were home. Everyone was out. It was a very strange thing to come home and see that there, and it totally terrified me. So it was just like, what is happening? Like, there's no explaining this weird thing. It was really there. I had to wash it off. I don't even think I told my parents about it. I think I was just like, this is too freaky, and they won't have an explanation for it. So, because there's nothing, like, what would have happened. And I remember that day, like, the important thing to say about that story is I had been eating this little bowl of chocolate chips, but it didn't make any sense to me how the chocolate chips could have gotten melted and splattered on the ceiling. Like, and I would have eaten all of them, obviously, before I left as well. So, like, I know, like, it just doesn't make any sense. And it wasn't, like, a fingerprint or two. It was literally this, like, probably this big of, like, this perfect circle pattern of like what looked like splattered paint, kind of. It was like splattered all the way across. It was so strange, and I just washed it off and just tried to not think about it. But I was always scared to like go into my room, and I would like run upstairs and jump into my bed and go into my room. And again, like it's weird because that part of the house was built on after we moved in there. So it's not really as though anything would have happened in that room. I think it was just more like my thoughts on it now is just more that things must have been coming to me because they knew I was sensitive or knew that I would know that things would be there. I don't know what the things were, but just whatever they could have been. So I have no explanations for those occurrences. As I got older, I remember going through a period of time. I lived in Toronto, and there was never really, I didn't really have any occurrences there. I was more like scared of things about living in the big city. If I would hear about like shootings or stabbings or things like that, that would really freak me out, and I would get afraid because I was living alone at the time. So I remember having like really vivid dreams about like people coming, like breaking into my apartment and that kind of thing, but nothing ever really happened at that time to make me think that there was like anything paranormal happening in my life. Then when I moved back to North Bay and started renting a store downtown on Main Street, so this is separate from my current store that I'm in now, there's so many strange occurrences that happened in my former location. I remember I had this angled bookshelf, and it was like this big, huge bookshelf, and there were like these long rows of books just angled on it. And one day I was locking up the store, and all the books fell over. And I was at the front of the store, nowhere near the back. I'd been like, you know, consolidating my day and was getting ready to leave, and all the books fell over. I was like, what? And I was just like, okay, I'm out of here. I'm leaving this. Picked it up the next day. I had mannequins up on top of the shelves, and they would just like fall over at random. Some of them were even like weighted with weights in behind to keep them from falling over, and they would just like fall right over. And my store was fairly small, so I didn't really have a lot of people in at the time because I was also new. So it'd be like maybe you'd have like 1 or 2 people in the store at a time, and it was just never explained from anyone touching anything. It always seemed so strange. And then the one that really irked me was I was in my bathroom, and I had the coffee pot sitting on the back of the toilet tank, and it was like in the middle, and it just like flew off and smashed on the floor. I was like, okay. I didn't touch it. I wasn't near it. It wasn't near the edge. It just like smashed. Like, that's crazy. And like lots of little weird things like that would happen all the time. One time I had a kid come in, and he was under 2, so probably I would say it was like maybe 1.5 years, and he was French. And he was sitting in a stroller, and he pointed up at the ceiling, like kind of to a corner in the ceiling, and was like, "Bebe, bebe," and just kept saying that over and over and pointing. That was like the weirdest thing, because all of this other stuff had been happening around that time where I was just like, I think kids can see these things, but then they're trained to not believe it. So, but I was thinking like, I don't think it's a baby that's there, but also what a weird spot that's like up in the corner there. So then I had a friend who's a medium who came into my store because I asked her if she could come and see what was there and who was there. And she came in, she sat in the back room for like 10 minutes and told me that there was someone there. He was around my age, which is he was trying to connect with me because we were similar ages and he thought we would get along. I can't remember his name, what she told me his name was, but it was something like Christopher or something pretty common. And she said that the space used to be, she's like, what was the space before? Was it a restaurant or a hotel or something like that? And I said I didn't know at the time. I didn't know what it was. And she's like, and there's something with the ceiling, like it's like, I don't know what's with the ceiling, but it's like you can't get past the ceiling. Like, I have no idea what it was. and she said that the spirit who was there, he overheard something he wasn't supposed to hear, speculating that it was like a group of people who had been meeting at this hotel or restaurant, and he was the busboy or the waiter or something like that, and he had overheard something he wasn't supposed to hear, and he got in the back. And it wasn't in my space because the way the space got broken up later, there was like a door back there, which always felt kind of weird, and the door went right into the space next door to me, that I never felt comfortable going in to their place that way. I later found out that it used to be an old restaurant and I think a hotel above, and above my store at one point I believe was a bowling alley. It was speculated that this area, or this store, the restaurant that it used to be, a lot of people involved in would meet there, and so supposedly this guy had overheard something that he wasn't supposed to and lost his life because of it. So always felt like he wanted to connect with me, and I was told to just acknowledge him and talk to him. If we were having food, set a place for him, like acknowledging that he was there. And it never really freaked me out much after that. Every once in a while, if I was leaving the store and it was dark, I'd be locking up and just kind of wouldn't really want to look into the store because I would think I was going to see him or see something, because I knew something was there. So I would always say like hello and goodbye to him whenever I would leave the store, and then like told him when I was moving locations, like, that someone else would be taking over the space. So yeah, it was like a very, very strange encounter for a long time. But once we started acknowledging him, or when weird things would happen, it would be just like talking to him, and it wasn't so much that a lot of things happened after we found that out. It was more just that we were coexisting in the space together. So other things have happened over my life that I have no question that it was spirits or energy coming to me, whether it was in dreams or people's grandparents have come to me, and I've had people follow me around before. It's always that kind of feeling of like looking over your shoulder, seeing if somebody's there. Someone usually is.